Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Today's episode is going to be titled Selective Communication. Communication skills have been on my mind a lot lately. I even made a video not long ago about how asking for good communication has become almost taboo in our society. It's like some people feel offended by the very idea of being asked to engage meaningfully. But today, I want to explore a different aspect of communication, something I've observed countless times. A lot of people do have good communication skills, but they're incredibly selective about when and with whom they use them. It's both fascinating and frustrating to watch this play out. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you're at McDonald's, Burger King, or Wendy's, whatever your go-to fast food spot is. There's an employee who seems perpetually grouchy, barely saying a word to anyone, and just going through the motions of their job. It's easy to assume they lack communication skills. But then, during their break, you catch them outside smoking a cigarette and talking on the phone. Suddenly, they're a different person. Animated, expressive, and clearly skilled at holding a conversation. You can see that they can communicate effectively. They're just choosing when and with whom to let those skills shine. This happens more often than we realize. We tend to confuse people who are selective with their communication skills for those who are universally bad at communicating. But the truth is, many people simply choose who they want to engage with and to what extent. I've seen this dynamic play out in group chats as well. Maybe I'm trying to strike up a conversation with someone, and they're giving me short, half-hearted responses. Then, someone else joins the chat, and suddenly this person lights up, cracking jokes, sharing stories, and becoming the life of the conversation. It's like watching a switch flip, and it leaves you wondering what just happened. For a long time, this kind of behavior frustrated me. I couldn't help but take it personally. But I've learned a valuable lesson. Don't jump to conclusions. Instead of immediately deciding someone lacks communication skills, I've started observing them more closely. If they're consistently quiet and reserved, even with others, it's likely that they genuinely struggle with communication. But if they suddenly become talkative and engaging around certain people, it's clear that they're just being selective. It takes patience and emotional self-control to reach that understanding, because it's easy to feel slighted when someone doesn't engage with you the way they do with others. That said, knowing this doesn't make it any easier. When you're on the receiving end of selective communication, it can feel incredibly personal. You might find yourself asking, why don't they want to talk to me? What's wrong with me? It's natural to feel rejected or like you're not good enough. I've been there, and I know how much it stings. Those moments are hard to shake off, especially when you're genuinely putting in the effort to connect with someone. But here's what I've learned. It's not always about you. People's selective communication is often more about them, their preferences, their energy levels, or even their past experiences. In some cases, people are selective because they've been hurt before. They've learned to reserve their energy for those they trust or feel comfortable with. Maybe they've been burned by certain groups of people, men, women, specific races, political affiliations, or personality types, and now they associate those groups with negativity. It's not fair, and it's often not logical, but it happens. These biases shape how and with whom they choose to communicate, even if it's subconscious. This is why I value consistency so much in communication. When someone is selective, it creates an imbalance. It's hard to build trust or meaningful relationships when one person is constantly holding back while the other is giving their all. That lack of balance can be draining. It's disheartening to pour effort into connecting with someone only to see them light up for someone else moments later. It feels like rejection, plain and simple, and it can leave you questioning your worth. Of course, not everyone shares my perspective on this. Some people don't see consistency as necessary and are perfectly fine with sporadic, selective interactions. That's their right. Everyone interprets situations differently, and these differences in interpretation are part of what makes human relationships so complex. I've talked about this before, how people's unique perspectives influence how they perceive and react to the same situation. It's something worth keeping in mind when dealing with selective communicators. When you encounter someone who seems selective in their communication, my best advice is to take a step back. Don't force the interaction. If a conversation feels one-sided or inauthentic, there's probably a reason for that. Trust your instincts. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is walk away and focus on finding people who genuinely value your energy and effort. Those are the conversations that are worth your time, the ones where both people are equally invested and present. It's also important to remember that selective communication isn't always malicious or intentional. Sometimes, people are just overwhelmed, distracted, or conserving their energy. Recognizing this can help you avoid taking it personally. And while it's never easy to feel excluded, try to focus on the relationships that bring mutual respect and understanding into your life. The right connections will feel natural, balanced, and fulfilling. At the end of the day, navigating selective communication is about managing expectations and emotions. It's frustrating, yes, and even painful at times. But rather than dwelling on those who don't match your energy, focus on those who do. Seek out conversations where both parties are fully engaged, and don't settle for less. Communication should feel like a two-way street, not a maze you have to figure out. Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Signing out. Have a good one, guys. Goodbye for now.